Hi, welcome to the 10-minute wrap-up series. In this video, we will wrap up the topic of Indus Water Treaty, which is in news due to Operation Sindoor and Pahalgam attack, which can be asked in Mains 2026 in the IR section of GS2, that is India and its neighborhood relation and bilateral relations, which affects India. The question can be from the IR section. So let us cover it comprehensively. What is the context of Indus Water Treaty? It was suspended during Operation Sindoor as a non-kinetic measure against the retaliation to the Pahalgam attack. It was a non-kinetic measure to the response to the Pahalgam attack. Whenever there is a question on water diplomacy or water scarcity, you can start with the quote given by Brahmachalani, that is, water in 21st century can easily become what oil was in 20th century, that is, source of wealth and the conflict. I repeat, water in 21st century can easily become what oil was in 20th century, that is, source of wealth and conflict. Now let us see about this treaty. This treaty was signed in 1960, which is a transboundary water sharing agreement signed by India and Pakistan, mediated by the World Bank. Pandit Nehru was Prime Minister of India, and Ayub Khan, who was from Pakistan, who signed this treaty in 1960. What is this water sharing agreement? This Indus River water system is divided into two, that is, Western rivers and the Eastern rivers. The Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab are given to the Pakistan, and Ravi, Beas, and Satluj are given to the India. India has complete right over these rivers, that is Ravi, Beas, and Satluj. How you can remember this division? You can remember it as CGI is with Pakistan, that is Chenab, Jhelum, and Indus, and RBS, that is Ravi, Beas, and Satluj, that are eastern rivers, are with India. And also, India is permitted to use these western rivers, that is Chenab, Jhelum, and Indus, for the domestic and non-consumptive purpose. For example, runoff river hydroelectric power projects. India can use these western rivers for runoff river hydroelectric power projects and can be used for domestic and non-consumptive purposes. And it has also a unique feature of graded dispute settlement. That is, it has three level of dispute settlement mechanism. The first level is, that is, permanent Indus Commission. That is, whenever there is a dispute, it can be solved through bilateral dispute resolution between the two countries. If the issue is not solved at the first level, it will go to the second level, that is neutral expert appointed by the World Bank. This neutral expert will act as a mediator to solve the dispute. If it is not solved at this second level, it will go to the third level, that is court of arbitration. Now let us see what is the significance of this treaty. The first significant is it is durability and resilience. This treaty, that is Indus Water Treaty, is durable and resilient because it survived the three wars, that is 1965 war and 1971, that is Liberation War, and 1999, that is Kargil War. And it also survived the repeated terrorist attacks. For example, there was a bilateral agreement even during the war. That shows the durability and resilience of this treaty. And the second significance is preamble of this treaty, which mentions about the spirit of goodwill and the friendship. 2. Satisfactory utilization of Indus water system. But Pakistan's doctrine is contradictory to this spirit of goodwill and friendship. What is the Pakistan doctrine? Pakistan doctrine is bleed India with thousand cuts. This is the doctrine of Pakistan, which is contradictory to the spirit of goodwill and friendship. During the signing of this treaty in 1960, Pandit Nehru said that this treaty is the price of peace for Pakistan. And the third significance is graded dispute settlement. As we have discussed earlier, that is, the first level is bilateral dispute settlement, second level is neutral expert appointed by World Bank, and third level is court of arbitration. And there is a significant important provision. There is no explicit exit clause. That means any modification or termination of this treaty required a duly ratified agreement. Any modification or termination of the treaty cannot be done unilaterally. It requires the bilateral agreement. Now we'll see what are the concerns, what are the recent concerns. The first one is that is the recent suspension, that is non-kinetic measure as a retaliation to the Pahalgam attack as a part of Operation Sindoor. The second issue is that is cross-border terrorism, which is state-sponsored. For example, Pakistan sponsored the terror groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, and the repeated attacks by these terrorist organizations. This cross-border terrorism undermines the spirit of goodwill and friendship as mentioned in the preamble of Indus Water Treaty. And the fourth concern is Pakistan's low fare strategy. Pakistan using this treaty to delay the Indian hydroelectric power projects even if they are lawful. Even the lawful hydroelectric power projects are delayed due to the misuse of the Pakistan. And the fourth concern is there is a demand for reviewing this treaty based on the present challenges. There are fundamental changes occurred since the 1960. There is the signing of this treaty. There are fundamental changes. What are the fundamental changes? In 1960, there was green revolution in India, which led to the depletion of groundwater, and there is also a climate change has a fundamental change, and the population growth as there is a more demand for the water. So there is a demand for reviewing this treaty based on the present challenges. And there is also a concern of underutilization of the India's rights. The Indus River basin is divided between Pakistan, India, China, and Afghanistan. Pakistan has the river basin of 47%, India has 39%, China has 8%, and Afghanistan has 6%. Even if India has 39% of the Indus River basin, but it only gets the 20% of the water flow. Whereas Pakistan has 47% of the Indus basin, but gets 80% of the water flow. You can see the difference. India, this means the underutilization of the India's rights. India is not getting its significant share. And the sixth concern is the strategic signaling by suspension of the treaty. As our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister said, the blood and water cannot flow together. And now we'll see what are the Pakistan's views. The suspension of Indus Water Treaty as an act of war. Pakistan declared the suspension of Indus Water Treaty as the act of war. And also Pakistan responded by suspending the Shimla Agreement, which was signed in 1972. What is the Shimla Agreement? That is all disputes needed to be settled bilaterally. The disputes between the India and Pakistan should be settled bilaterally. There is no need of third party intervention. This is Shimla Agreement. Why this treaty is significant for the Pakistan? Because about 80% of the cultivated land of Pakistan depends on the water from Indus River system, which acts as a backbone of the agriculture, which contributes to the 25% of the Pakistan GDP. The 80% of the cultivated land of Pakistan is dependent on Indus water system. Now we'll see what are the challenges. These are the broad challenges. The first one is unilateral suspension by India will damage the India's credibility as the responsible international actor. This Indus Water Treaty suspension is the unilateral decision of India, which may also set the dangerous precedences in the neighborhood, and it damages the India's credibility. The second challenge is operational and environmental risk. That is, construction of reservoirs lead to the environmental risks. The third one is infrastructural challenge. There was a narrative during the Operation Sindoor that India can stop the water of Indus to the Pakistan, but it is not possible because India lacks the infrastructure. That is, India require the major infrastructure. India is permitted to store 3.8 million acre feet of Indus River system, but India has only the capacity to store only 1 million acre feet. You can see the gap here. There is 2.8 million acre feet of infrastructural gap to stop the water for the Pakistan. Another challenge is internationalization of the water conflict. Pakistan used this strategy, that is interna- internationalization of the issues between the India and Pakistan. It uses this tool of internationalization. For example, Jammu and Kashmir issue was also internationalized because Pakistan want hyphenation with India. It wants to see it itself with India, whereas India wants dehyphenation with the Pakistan. For example, Vienna Convention on Loss of Treaties, Article 60 says that suspension can be done if there is a significant breach by the either party. Article 62 of Vienna Convention says that if there are fundamental changes, the treaty can be revoked or renegotiated. But India is not a signatory to this Vienna Convention. And the fifth one is manufactured threat, that is a part of psychological warfare. What is this manufactured threat? That is, what if the China stops the Brahmaputra river? See here. This is the northeastern region of India. Brahmaputra enters the northeastern region through the bend called as Namchabarwa. China, which is in the upper riparian state, and the India is lower riparian state. Whenever there is a dispute between the two countries, the upper riparian state will have the advantage of stopping the river flow into the lower riparian state. Similarly, India enjoys the upper riparian state status in the Indus river system, where India is a upper riparian state and Pakistan is lower riparian state, where India can stop the water of Indus to the lower riparian state, which is in the disadvantaged position. But this narrative is challenged by the Assam chief minister. Assam CM said that if China stops the river of Brahmaputra, it can mitigate the Assam floods, which is advantage for India. And also, he given a reason that the downpour of northeast is the major flow and not the glacial melt, that is only 38%. That means the downpour from the northeastern region is the major water flow and not the glacial melt, which comes from China's side. That is only 38%. The glacial melt is only 38%. And the sixth challenge is Sino-Pak axis, that is also called as two front war. That is, India should face the two front war from this front, that is Pakistan, from this front from China. That is also called as pincer strategy. This looks like the pincer. What is the ethical dimension? That is doctrine of proportionality, which means any response to the wrongful acts must be proportionate to the harm suffered. The response to the wrongful acts must be proportionate to the harm suffered. It is an ethical dimension. And now we'll see what we can write in the way forward. Maintaining the strategic stance, that is strategic signaling through suspension of the treaty. The strengthen the legal position and pursue the treaty revision. There is a need for revision of the treaty and strengthening the legal position. And the important way forward is hydro diplomacy, that is the use of diplomatic tools to negotiation to manage the transboundary water conflict. These are the diplomatic tools, that is hydro diplomacy. And you can also end your answer by writing the global practice, that is Columbia River Treaty, which was signed in 1961, which is a permanent treaty between the USA and Canada. Even it was a permanent in nature, but in 2024 it inserted a provision which allowed the either country to withdraw after the 10 years notice period. This is a global example where the permanent nature of the treaty can be solved through adding a provision and giving an option to the either country to withdraw after giving the 10-year notice period. Now we'll see what all we have discussed in this video. I have given you the context, I have given you the quote by Brahmachalani, and we have seen about the treaty and the unique feature, that is graded dispute settlement. And we have seen the distribution of the Indus river system between the India and Pakistan, that is CJ, Chenab, Jhelum and Indus are with Pakistan, and RBS, that is river Ravi, Bias and Satluj, that are eastern rivers, are with India. And we have seen the significance, that is durability and resilience of the treaty, The preamble of the treaty, which mentions about the spirit of the goodwill and the friendship and the graded dispute settlement, and there is no exit clause. And what are the concerns? We have seen the concerns: cross-border terrorism, Pakistan lawfare strategy, and there is a demand for reviewing the treaty and underutilization of the India's rights and the strategic signaling. And we have also seen the Pakistan views, and we have seen the broad challenges, that is unilateral suspension undermines the India's credibility, operational and environmental risk, infrastructure challenges of India, and the internalization of the water conflict and the manufactured threat, that is a part of psychological warfare, and there is a challenge of Sino-Pak axis, that is two front war, and we have seen the way forward, and also the global practice